Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to talk about a massive shift happening in global Christianity. We're calling it the Great Imbalance, and honestly, it's one of the biggest challenges, but also one of the greatest opportunities for the church in the world today. This is really a story about incredible untapped potential.
Okay, let's just dive right in with the single most important picture for our whole story today. This is the Great Imbalance. So on the left, what you're seeing is that a huge 80% of the world's evangelical Christians now live in what we call the global south, Asia, Africa, and Latin America. But then look at the chart on the right. Here's the kicker. That same 80% of the church is currently sending only 20% of the world's missionaries. I mean, that is a massive, massive gap between where the people are and who's participating.
So the obvious question is, how on earth did we get to this point? This isn't just a number on a page, right? It's a fundamental shift in the Christian world. So let's unpack what this imbalance really means for the future, and more importantly, what can actually be done about it.
All right, so first up, let's take a closer look at this great imbalance and really get our heads around the problem that's staring us right in the face.
And to do that, we need to look at the church's new map. See, to really understand what's happening now, you've got to understand the pretty dramatic shift that's happened over the last 50 years.
What we're witnessing here is a total reshaping of global Christianity. For centuries, the main hubs for sending missionaries were North America and Europe. But over the last half-century, something incredible happened. The church just exploded with growth in the global south, driven by these amazing local movements. So get this, the places that used to be the mission fields are now the biggest force in Christianity worldwide.
So you've got this incredible growth, all these people, all this passion. But how do you bridge that 80-20 gap we saw? Well, the key, it turns out, is a strategy called mission mobilization. It's basically the game plan for unlocking all of that incredible potential.
Okay, so think of mobilization as the engine that turns that potential into actual action. It's a really deliberate process. It's about engaging people, equipping them with what they need, and then connecting them to their best, most strategic role in what's called the Great Commission. It helps every single person find their part to play, whether that's going, praying, sending money, or welcoming others. And it's not just one big thing. It actually breaks down into 3 key levels. First, it starts really broad with general mobilization. That's all about building a global mindset for everybody in the church. Then it gets more focused with specific mobilization, which is preparing people for very specific roles. And finally, you have ministry mobilization, which is the super practical part, actually connecting these trained people with real opportunities out in the field.
And there's this great quote from a mobilizer that just nails why that first level is so important. All ships rise with the tide. See, when you focus on that general education, on building that worldview for everyone, you create a culture that just lifts everything up. You get more prayer, more financial support, more people wanting to go. The whole mission just gets stronger.
But look, a strategy this big has to be smart. You can't just guess. To really apply mobilization effectively all around the world, you need good, solid data. And that's where this new tool called the Mobilization Index comes into play.
And this is not just some random spreadsheet, it's a really strategic tool. For decades, resources like Operation World and the Joshua Project have used data to map out where the needs are greatest. Well, the Mobilization Index is kind of the next step in that evolution. It uses data to figure out where the sending potential is greatest, pinpointing the places where the church is just ready and waiting for a new missions movement.
And here's a little peek under the hood at how smart this thing is. It's not just counting Christians. The index looks at a country's prosperity, its physical access to people groups who've never heard the gospel, how generous the culture is, how young the population is, and even what the religious freedoms are like. All these little pieces come together to paint this incredibly detailed picture of a country's unique potential to send people out.
So, with all this data in hand, we can start to see what the global potential really looks like. And this is where it gets really exciting. Let's just run a little what-if scenario and see what could happen if we tapped into even a tiny fraction of this potential.
So let's just ask this one question. What if just 1/10 of 1%, that's just 1 out of every 1,000 believers in these new Christian heartlands, was mobilized for missions? I mean, that's a tiny, tiny fraction. It feels so achievable. But the results, well, they're kind of mind-boggling. Just look at this number. Based on that tiny benchmark, Nigeria alone has the potential to send 50,000 new missionaries. That is a monumental increase to the global missions force, and that's just from one single country.
And it's not just an isolated case. Using that same super conservative estimate, Kenya could potentially add another 20,000 workers.
I mean, the numbers just keep stacking up and up.
Let's just visualize this for a second. You've got Brazil and Nigeria, each with the potential to send 50,000 new missionaries. Then you add in Kenya's 20,000. We are talking about 120,000 new people from just 3 nations. That is enough to completely change the entire landscape of global missions as we know it.
So what all this data is screaming at us is that we're in the middle of a historic shift. The old model, the one that was often described as from the West to the rest, is being replaced by a whole new reality. The future is truly from everyone to everywhere. It's a global collaborative effort.
So, the numbers are clear, the strategy is there, the potential is just sitting there waiting to be unlocked. This great imbalance, well, it's actually the great opportunity. So the only real question left is, what's it going to take to turn all of this incredible potential into a reality?
Once the West was carrying the flame, but now the fire has spread and it will never be the same. From Asia, Africa, and Latin lands, the spirit stirs the hearts of nations take a stand. We read the same word, we hear the same call. The Great Commission was given to us all. From every nation, the workers rise with burning hearts and open eyes. The mission field becomes the force, the gospel running its holy course. From every nation to every land, together we go, together we stand. Oh yeah, I met a brother from India shore. 10 years in Cambodia, opening the door. In Cambodia, sending out the best to India's villages, east to west. It's not one way, it's not the west to the rest. It's all God's people giving their best. From every nation, the workers rise with burning hearts and open eyes. The mission field becomes the force, the gospel running its holy course. From every nation to every land, together we go, together we stand. Oh yeah, I met a brother from India shore. 10 years in Cambodia, opening the door. In Cambodia, sending out their best to India's villages, east to west. It's not one way, it's not the west to the rest. It's all God's people giving their best. From every nation, the workers rise with burning hearts and open eyes. The mission field becomes the force, the gospel running its holy course. From every nation to every land, together we go, together we stand. But who will send, who will sustain, who will embrace the cost and the pain? Leaders rise and cast the vision clear. The senders are needed, the time is here. From every nation, the workers rise with burning hearts and open eyes. The mission field becomes the force, the gospel running its holy course. From every nation to every land, together we go, together we stand. It's no longer the West, we're reaching the rest. It's the whole wide church, giving her best. God's kingdom advancing hand in hand, from every nation to every land.